My aunt locked me out of the robotics showcase I planned, gave my prototype to her daughter, my cousin, and told me investors want someone with a real future. So I pulled the plug on the whole event mid-speech. I knew something was wrong the second I turned into the parking lot and saw all the cars. Too many. Too polished. Lexus, Tesla, a Mercedes with out-of-state plates. Not the kind of crowd that showed up for a student robotics showcase. My name's Elena Ramirez. I'm 23. I live in Flagstaff, Arizona, and I'm 7 months pregnant with a belly that enters rooms before I do. For the last 5 months, I've been organizing what was supposed to be the biggest public demonstration of our engineering program. I booked the venue, paid the contractors, sent out invites, secured sponsors. Everything was coming out of my pocket, money saved from tutoring and a short-term loan that still made my chest tighten every time I opened my banking app. This was going to be my launch pad. My prototype was ready, my pitch was polished, and I needed a job lined up before the baby came. But as I approached the main doors of the lecture hall, I stopped cold. They were locked. The lights were on inside, and through the frosted glass I could see silhouettes moving around, a cluster of people in suits, someone gesturing toward a projector screen. And then I heard it. Applause. Laughter. Music. I knocked. Hard. Then again. A student worker glanced over but quickly turned away like I wasn't there. I cupped my hands around the glass and leaned in. That's when I saw her. Camilla. In a silver dress, heels, the kind of confident posture you can't fake. She stood at the front of the room, holding one of my prototypes, the exact armature I had designed for a motion-guided exoskeleton. She wasn't just showing it off, she was being celebrated. I heard a voice through the speaker system crackle out, "Let's give it up for Camilla de la Cruz, the future of biomechatronics." I backed away like I'd been slapped. My legs moved on autopilot around the side of the building where a service door was slightly propped open. I pushed through the hallway, past a cart of untouched catering trays, the ones I had ordered, and finally reached the lobby. And there at the top of the stairs was my aunt, Dean Leticia de la Cruz, head of the engineering school. Camilla's mother. My mother's sister. She was smiling as she watched Camilla shake hands with a man in a navy blazer and a recruiter badge. When she spotted me, her expression changed, the smile slipped, but only a little. "You shouldn't be here," she said calmly, like we were just bumping into each other at the grocery store. "This is my event," I said, voice shaking. "I planned this. I paid for it. What the hell is going on?" Her eyes scanned me slowly, the belly, the worn flats, the expression I couldn't hide. She didn't look guilty. Just bored. She tilted her head. "We decided to reallocate the program's spotlight. Investors want to see someone with stamina, stability, a future." I stared at her, my mouth open. She smiled thinly and added, "We only invest in candidates with real futures, Elena." "I'm sorry." And then she turned and walked away. That was when I realized I was shaking. I looked down at the badge around my neck, my name, printed in bold, event coordinator. But I wasn't welcome inside my own event. The prototype I built was now hers. The opportunity one fought for handed to someone else. And they were laughing. I didn't cry. Not then. Not even when the applause swelled behind the closed doors and someone wheeled out the banner that still had my event's name, Innovations in Adaptive Robotics, with a fresh final sheet slapped over it that read, Camilla de la Cruz, an evening with tomorrow's engineer. I walked slowly back down the hallway, one hand resting on my stomach. The baby shifted slightly, almost like they felt the tension too. I pulled out my phone, scrolled past texts from classmates asking where I was, and tapped the number I had saved under Events, Maine. The contractor answered on the second ring. "Hey, Elena. Everything good? We just got word from the venue about the time change." "No," I said quietly. "Pull it." There was a pause. "Pull what?" "All of it." He went quiet, probably thinking he misheard. "Wait, you mean cancel? The showcase?" "Elena, we've got lighting set up. The food truck's already delivered, AV is." "Pull everything," I repeated, slower this time. "Lights, sound crew, catering, security. They're not getting $1 more of what I paid for." A long breath on the other end. "You sure? Positive?" I could hear him tapping on a keyboard. Okay, that's your right. I'll start calling vendors. Just to confirm, you don't want any services delivered tonight." "None," I said. "Invoice me for whatever's already been used and cut everything else." He hesitated one last time. "You got it." I hung up. For a second, I just stood there in that dim hallway, staring at the ugly beige carpet and the fluorescent buzz overhead. Then I turned and walked back the way I came. By the time I passed the front entrance again, the lights in the lobby were already flickering. One of the projectors cut out mid-presentation, plunging the left wall into shadow. The sound system hiccuped. I could hear confusion in the crowd, murmurs starting, someone trying to recover the speech, another voice whispering, "Is this supposed to happen?" I didn't wait to see how bad it got. I walked through the doors into the warm air of the parking lot and didn't look back. My face was calm. My hands steady. They had stolen my spotlight. But I had paid for the stage. And I just turned the lights off. The knock came just after midnight. Not polite. Angry. Sharp. I was still in my clothes from earlier, sitting on the edge of my bed, staring at the blank spot on the wall where I'd planned to hang a photo of the showcase. I hadn't moved in hours. The baby kicked. I whispered, "It's okay, more for me than them." Then the knock came again, harder this time. Fists, not knuckles. I didn't have to guess. I already knew. I opened the door to find 3 of them on my porch: Camilla, my Aunt Letitia, and Dean Alvarez, the assistant dean, who always followed my aunt around like a loyal intern. They looked like they had come straight from battle. Smeared lipstick, sweat at the hairline, mascara streaks under Camilla's eyes. Camilla was the first to speak. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Her voice cracked from yelling, but she didn't care. She pushed past me into the tiny living room like she owned it. I didn't stop her. My Aunt Alvarez followed, their silence heavier than any shouting. "You ruined everything," Camilla shouted, turning to face me with both hands clenched. "They pulled the offer. The entire internship package, gone. The recruiters left early because there was no food, no AV, no anything. You did this out of jealousy." I closed the door and leaned back against it, arms crossed. "No," I said. "I did it because it was mine." Letitia spoke next, calm but cruel. "You just cost your cousin the opportunity of a lifetime. Do you know how unhinged you look? How desperate?" I looked at her, then at Camilla. "You mean the opportunity that was mine until you stole it?" Camilla's mouth dropped open. "That's not fair. I booked that hall. I paid every vendor. I submitted the grant proposal you forged my name on." I took a breath. "You replaced me on my own stage. And you didn't even tell me. You just locked the door and laughed." Alvarez, who hadn't spoken yet, cleared his throat. "You didn't handle this professionally, Elena. You could have addressed it with administration." I scoffed. "Right." To the woman who hijacked the event. Letitia stepped forward. "You don't have the maturity to survive in this field. You think a tantrum will open doors for you?" "No," I said. "But maybe slamming them shut will remind people not to walk through mine uninvited." Camilla was crying now. Her voice came out smaller. "You embarrass me. And you erase me," I said, quieter now. "You took my work, my showcase, my funding all for your spotlight. You want to talk about sabotage? Look in the mirror." Letitia tried again, softer now. "You need to think long-term, Elena. You've made enemies tonight." I opened the door again and gestured toward it. "Then you better leave before I become one officially." Nobody moved for a second. Then Camilla brushed past me, wiping her eyes. Letitia followed, silent. Alvarez paused at the doorway, but I didn't meet his eyes. When I closed the door, it echoed. The silence afterward was beautiful. 3 days passed before I got the call. I was eating cereal at the kitchen counter, staring blankly at my robot's damaged sensor module, the one Camilla had ripped off to showcase as her own, when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. "Elena Ramirez?" a calm voice asked. "Yes. This is Camille Tran from Legal Aid Partners. I wanted to confirm that your file has been processed and your trust has been fully transferred out of Dean de la Cruz's control." I straightened up. "It's finalized?" "Yes, ma'am. The board approved the shift this morning. Your aunt no longer has access to the accounts or your academic trust disbursements." I exhaled slowly. "Thank you. One more thing," she added. "We also filed your formal complaint with the Office of Academic Integrity. Attached is the documentation, including the scanned signature you reported as forged." She sent the file before we hung up. I opened it instantly. And there it was. My name, signed in shaky ink across a release form for grant funds. A signature I never gave. A project title that matched Camilla's submission exactly. I didn't waste time. By late afternoon, I'd forwarded everything to the university's ethics board and copied 2 faculty members I trusted, one who had written my first recommendation letter, and another who had quietly told me months ago that not all family stays on your side forever. The fallout took less than a day. I got a call that evening, not from my aunt this time, but from Camilla. Her voice was panicked. "What did you do?" I didn't say anything. "I just got an email from the internship office. They're putting my offer on hold. They said there's a pending review." "Elena, what the hell did you say?" I kept my voice even. I told the truth. "You're going to destroy our family." "No," I said. "You already did that. I'm just finally walking away from the wreckage." She didn't respond for a second. "Then, she's going to lose everything. You understand that, right? Our aunt, she spent years building her name on stolen work." I cut in. "She built it on top of people like me. And you helped." "I didn't know about the grant," she said quietly. "You didn't ask either." The silence on the line stretched for a few seconds more. "I didn't think you'd actually go through with it," she said finally. "Well," I said, "that's your problem." And I hung up. Later that night, I logged into the financial portal for my academic fund. My name was the only one listed under permissions. For the first time in 4 years, I was free. Not from debt. Not from stress, but from them. And that was a kind of wealth no trust fund could ever match. The email came on a Tuesday. I was at my internship, a mid-size robotics firm in Tempe, helping the lead engineer troubleshoot a sensor drift problem on a mobility assistant unit when I got called into HR. Elena, Carmen, the coordinator, said softly, "Do you have a moment?" My heart sank. No one ever says it like that unless something's wrong. She led me into the glass-walled conference room and shut the door. On the table was a printed packet. My name was bolded on the front. "What is this?" I asked, even though part of me already knew. She sat across from me. "We received an anonymous report last night. It accuses you of academic misconduct, falsifying credentials, and mental instability. It's been circulating to our internal channels. Someone clearly wanted it taken seriously." I stared at the papers, numb. "You're not under investigation," she added quickly. "But we have to follow protocol. We wanted to hear directly from you." I picked up the report. It was ridiculous, a jumbled mess of formal-sounding accusations and personal jabs. One paragraph claimed I faked my pregnancy for sympathy. Another said I had been caught cheating multiple times and used emotional manipulation to secure internship placement. Attached was a fake name at the bottom. Concerned faculty member. But the phrasing, the structure, the way the sentences trailed off and circled back, I knew that voice. It was Letitia's. I'd heard her write before, recommendation blurbs, memos, speeches. She always overused the phrase potential liability. It was in this report 5 times. I looked up at Carmen. "Do you mind if I show you something?" "Of course." I pulled out my USB drive from my bag, popped it into the conference laptop, and opened a folder titled Protection, Do Not Delete. Inside were documents, emails, photos of grant paperwork, screenshots of university documents bearing my name and Camilla's logo. One folder was labeled Dean Conflict of Interest, Family Ties. Another, Forged Signature Comparison. I let her scroll in silence. When she finished, she leaned back slowly. "You've been sitting on this?" I nodded. I was waiting for them to come for me first. Carmen closed the folder and nodded. "Thank you, Elena. We're not only closing this report, we're escalating it to legal. You don't deserve this." I swallowed hard. "I just want to work." "And you will," she said firmly. "This doesn't touch your internship. Not even close." 2 days later, I received an official apology email from the company's CEO. By the end of the week, HR forwarded me a message from their legal team. "If the sender of the false report is identified, we reserve the right to pursue legal action on your behalf." I never responded to my aunt's smear attempt, because silence was louder than any reply, and I was finally the one holding the mic. I smelled it before I saw it. Burned plastic. It hit me the moment I opened the door to my workshop, that sick, chemical stench of something melted that should never have been near heat. My heart dropped. I stepped inside, slow scanning the room. My drafting table was overturned. Half my schematics were shredded and soaked in what smelled like motor oil. Wires hung in limp curls from my disassembled prototypes, which now looked more like carcasses than machines. And there, propped up neatly against the wall above my destroyed desk, was a piece of cardboard. Scrawled across it in red marker, "You chose exile." I didn't panic. Not because I wasn't afraid I was. My hands were shaking. My stomach turned. The baby kicked hard, reacting to the spike in my pulse. But I moved carefully, deliberately. I took pictures of everything. Every corner. Every broken servo. Every cable yanked out of the breadboards. Then I sat down in the one chair still standing and called the police. They arrived within 15 minutes. The officer was kind, maybe early 30s, looked like he didn't want to be there. "Any idea who might have done this?" I nodded. "Yes. My aunt." He raised an eyebrow. "And what's her motive?" I looked him straight in the eye. "I cut her off. Financially. Professionally. She retaliated. This is her warning." He wrote everything down. Took statements. "Bagged the threatening sign. We'll file it officially as vandalism and intimidation," he said. "But if you feel unsafe, you need to consider filing for a restraining order." "I already started," I told him. "My lawyer's drawing up the petition." He paused, then nodded like that was the best news he'd heard all night. When they left, I stayed in the wreckage for a long time. I didn't clean up. Not yet. Instead, I sat and stared at what was left of the robot I had spent months building. A modular assistive unit, designed to lift and stabilize movement for stroke survivors. It had been my senior capstone project. It was supposed to be in a demo video for my internship next month. Now it looked like something rescued from a fire. I could feel the old instinct rising, that urge to give up, to curl in, to go quiet. But I didn't. Instead, I opened a new notebook and started redrawing the blueprint from scratch. Line by line. If they wanted a war, they picked the wrong engineer. I never wanted to end up in court. But here I was, seated behind a long wooden table in a small, Overheated courtroom, my lawyer to my left, my hands folded over my stomach. 7.5 months along. The baby kicked once gently, like they were rooting for me. Across the aisle, Letitia sat like she owned the place. Hair pinned, suit sharp, one hand resting over a leather binder like it was a prop. No Camilla this time. No Dean Alvarez. Just Letitia and her expression, that fake maternal concern she wore whenever she was backed into a corner. The judge, a stern woman with silver streaks in her hair, cleared her throat. Let's begin. My attorney stood. Your Honor, we're requesting a full protective order against Dean Letitia de la Cruz on the grounds of ongoing harassment, vandalism, intimidation, and professional sabotage. We have documentation of unauthorized access to our client's academic trust, a forged signature on a university grant, and now physical break-in and property destruction. She laid out the evidence one piece at a time. Photographs of the vandalized workshop, screenshots of emails, financial logs tracing disbursements to Camilla's account with my name still listed as the originator. Handwriting analysis showing the forged signature was a near-perfect match to Letitia's. Letitia never looked up. She just stared at the table like this was all some boring administrative task. Then it was her turn. I am heartbroken, she began, her voice syrupy. That things have come to this. Elena is family. I only ever wanted what was best for her. But she's under immense stress. Her behavior lately has been erratic, emotional. She's in her 3rd trimester. She's not thinking clearly. My lawyer didn't even flinch. Objection to the implication that pregnancy equals instability. Sustained, the judge said flatly. Letitia kept going. This isn't who Elena is. She's being influenced by misinformation. If she had come to me directly instead of going public. I did come to you, I said loudly, standing up before my lawyer could stop me. The judge raised a hand but didn't stop me. I came to you at the door of my own showcase. I begged for an explanation. And you looked me in the face and said I had no future. Letitia's mouth opened, then closed again. My prototype was stolen. My name was erased. And when I pushed back, you tried to ruin my career. Then you vandalized my workshop and left a threat behind. This isn't concern. It's control. And I'm done being controlled. Silence. Not even the court stenographer typed for a few seconds. The judge looked between us, then down at the file. Ms. Ramirez, thank you. Please sit. I did. 10 minutes later, the gavel came down. The court grants the request for a full protective order, effective immediately. The defendant is to have no contact with Ms. Ramirez, direct or indirect, personal or professional. Any violation will result in criminal charges. Letitia stood up slowly, stunned. And for the first time in my life, she didn't have a word to say. 3 months later, I didn't recognize my own life. My belly had grown round and full, resting like a gentle planet in front of me as I worked inside my new studio. A real one with smooth counters, glass whiteboards, and cabinets that didn't fall off the hinges when you opened them. The ceiling was lined with LED lights. The floor was clean. The door locked properly. My name was etched on a glass panel near the entrance, Ramirez Robotics Independent Design Lab. I'd been accepted into a startup incubator for socially driven tech, and my first project, an assistive robot for single parents, had already received interest from 2 potential partners. One of them was based out of Portland. The other wanted to fly me out after the baby was born. Most days I worked barefoot, music low in the background, my body swaying with the baby's rhythm. A little crib sat tucked in the corner, right next to the mini fridge I'd stocked with protein shakes and applesauce. Everything I owned, everything I'd earned, it was all mine now. Clean. Quiet. Free. Then one night, as I was laying out new servo schematics near the nursery corner, my phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a name I hadn't seen in weeks. Camilla. I stared at it, unsure whether to swipe or silence it. For a second, I did nothing. Just listened to the hum of the studio and the baby roll softly inside me. Then I picked up. Her voice was quiet. Hey. Hi. Silence stretched out between us like thread, fragile, trembling. I didn't know if you'd answer. I didn't either. Another pause. She sighed. I needed to say something. I waited. I was wrong, she said finally. About everything. And just like that, the perfect silence of my new life rippled, the smallest stone dropped into calm water. I leaned back in my chair, hand on my stomach, and closed my eyes. Camilla came by the next afternoon. I didn't invite her in right away. I made her wait on the front steps of the studio while I finished sealing a motor assembly, not because I was being petty, but because I needed to see if she'd actually wait. She did. When I opened the door, she looked small. Not in stature, but in presence. Like the sharp edges she always carried had worn down. Thanks for not hanging up last night, she said softly. I didn't say anything. She stepped inside and glanced around. Her eyes landed on the corner crib, then the whiteboard sketches, the prototype chassis resting on a velvet-lined table. "This is beautiful," she whispered. "It's quiet," I said. She nodded, folding her arms like she was bracing herself. "I wanted to explain," she said. "Not to excuse it, just explain." I let her talk. "When they pulled my offer," she said, "Letitia told me it was your fault. That you'd gone unstable. That I needed to stay quiet to protect what was left." I raised an eyebrow. "And you believed her?" She winced. "I wanted to. I didn't want to admit how much I had benefited from pretending I didn't see what was happening." There was a tremble in her voice now, not performance, not manipulation. Just tiredness. "She disowned me," Camilla said. "When the ethics board opened an investigation, she told me I was a liability. She said I'd embarrass the family." My jaw clenched. "She was fine using you when it suited her." Camilla looked down. "And I was fine letting her." Silence passed between us like smoke. "I should have stood up," she said. "Back at the event. Back when I saw your name disappear from the materials. I should have stopped it." "You didn't," I said flatly. "I know." She looked up. Her eyes were wet but steady. "You were always the better one. I just wanted to keep up." I leaned against the wall, one hand on the curve of my belly. "I don't forget betrayal easily," I said. "I don't expect you to," she replied. "But I don't close the door forever either," I added after a pause. "Not if the person on the other side is willing to knock for real this time." She swallowed hard. "I am." I nodded slowly. "Then start with this," I said. "Stop pretending we're cousins. Start acting like we're human beings." She smiled, a real one this time. And for the first time since it all began, I didn't feel like the only survivor of a broken family. The nursery wasn't much. Just a corner in the back of my studio, a clean square of space with soft lighting, a second-hand crib I'd refinished myself, and a mobile I made from old circuit boards and ribbon. It sat beside my workbench. Half productivity, half promise. I placed an old baby monitor on the shelf, right next to the motor driver for my prototype. It wasn't exactly the traditional setup, but nothing about this journey had been traditional. And honestly, I preferred it that way. On the far wall I had taped up blueprints. Not of robots. Not this time. They were of a schedule. Feeding, sleep, diaper rotation. A plan. A map of how I was going to figure this out alone. I liked maps. They reminded me that every mess could be untangled if you just looked at it long enough. Above the workbench I pinned a photo, my very first ultrasound. It was grainy and a little bent from how many times I'd taken it in and out of my bag those early days. But I kept it where I could see it, right above my monitor. It kept me grounded. I stood there now, hand resting on the crib rail, just looking. Everything was quiet. The air was warm. The world, for once, felt still. I glanced from the blueprints to the photo. From the future I was designing to the future I was carrying. And I whispered, "It's all for you." No courtroom. No university. No bitter voicemail or grant document mattered anymore. Because the only thing that would ever come first from now on was the tiny heartbeat that once blinked at me from a black and white screen. I wasn't building for revenge anymore. I was building for us. And that was enough.